play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Matthew and Steve here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to our two-part review video series for the Next Gathering Storm book, number 2, Fracture of Biel-Tan. So this is all about the Eldar, like all of the Eldar. Eldar, Dark Eldar, and Harlequins.
Aeldari,
sorry. All about the Aeldari. Because Eldar was already copyrighted somewhere. Anyways, so we're going to go over all the rules here as a two-part series like we have done for a lot of our review stuff. So the first part is free, right here. This is free. We're going to talk about the rules. We're going to talk about detachments, formations. And in the second video, it will be in the MiniWarGaming Vault, which will just continue the discussion. So we're going to cover pretty much half of the content here, and then the other half will be in the MiniWarGaming Vault. And if you're a Vault member, it's nice and easy. Just click the link in the video description below, and you'll be able to go and watch that. If you're not a Vault member, you can still click it, get a free 7-day trial to the MiniWarGaming Vault, get instant access to the second part of this series, as well as thousands of other videos that are currently in there. Lots of painting tutorials, battle reports, behind the scenes, and everything else. It's basically what helps support us. If you're not aware of that already, if you haven't heard me say that 1,000 times, it is what makes us able to do what we do. So it's about 90% of our revenue, with a little bit of advertising revenue in there just to sweeten the deal from YouTube. Not enough to cover our expenses, that's for sure. So let's. I'm going to pass it over to you for a second, Steve. And before we get into actually going through all the stuff in the book, I want you to give your overall impression of the Fracture of Biel-Tan.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to hold this for a second.
Sure.
Oh, you got shocked yet?
Yeah, you can keep that.
I will say this very honestly. I actually really love this book. It is going to be a tremendous amount of fun to play. I need you to read all the fluff in it and tell me what's actually going on, because the book is like 95% fluff.
Yes.
It's a pretty thick book.
Just like the Fall of Cadia. Keep going.
So yeah, no, it actually, I'm super excited to do this. I want to paint some more stuff up for it. I'll have a lot of fun playing this. But I want everybody to know, because I think I actually know what I'm going to say here, is I'm going to, as we talk about everything in here, is I'm going to take everything I say from a power gamer point of view. I'm going to nitpick and take it apart from my playstyle, what I think is most Aeldari playstyles. But I may sound negative on a few things. Actually, some things are actually quite amazing. We'll get to them when we get to them. But just so everybody knows, like, I actually do think this is really cool. I'm going to have a lot of fun playing this. I'm not trying to bang on the book, but I will take it apart.
So what you're saying is you're going to take it from a power gamer point of view.
Yep.
But you're not a power gamer.
No, I am.
Oh, okay.
No, I am. No, I absolutely am. But everybody here is.
That's true. I just remember calling you a power gamer once, and you seemed to take offense to that. So I'm glad that we've clarified.
More than once.
Anyway, so yeah, I agree. It's the Fall of Cadia was very similar. It's I wouldn't say it's 95% fluff. It's more like narrative, lore. It's all good stuff. But it's about 80% narrative and lore. But that's what these books are. They're more about advancing the story and then introducing some new tricks and stuff for the armies that are there.
Which is absolutely so cool, like advancing the story. Okay, I don't like to read the fluff. I'm reading this.
Narrative.
The narrative. This actually sounds so interesting. What's going on with this new god, Ined? We're going to say Ned, right?
Ined is how we've heard Games Workshop's people call it. So
correct. Yeah, this is absolutely. I can't believe we're actually got to the point in Warhammer the first time in 30 years. Well, it's the first time in 20 years we're getting a real advance to the story and seeing different things. I love it.
Yeah. And in case you're wondering why I keep correcting ourselves from fluff to narrative, it's just because we want to talk about the narrative as if it actually deserves some respect, and the word fluff doesn't really convey that, even though I know we don't necessarily say it out of disrespect. It's just more habit, but we're going to be trying to call it narrative and lore from now on. So you guys can do whatever you want in the comments, of course, but that is going to be our goal, because I think a lot of time and a lot of work has been put into the story, the artwork, and obviously the modeling as well for all of that's happened here, and it's really good. As much as there might be some detractors, that's the same for any storyline. Some people are going to like it. Some people are not going to like where they go. Some people are going to think they did a good job, and otherwise. Now, I haven't actually read the narrative part of this book. I haven't had time like I did for the Fall of Cadia one, but I'm looking forward to it But we're going to be focusing on the rules, not on the models or on the narrative aspect of it. But just like the Fall of Cadia, like if I could sum up the review for Fall of Cadia, the 3 new characters were good, some better than others, and the formations and detachments were incredibly useless if you're looking at it from a power gaming point of view. And even when I was trying to play them narratively, I found that those formations and detachments just weren't fun. They just they required, all the ones in the Fall of Cadia book required you to like max them out before you got their full benefit. And I really didn't like that because some of them would require, unless you're min-maxing like crazy, you basically have to be playing larger games in order for them to really be useful. So it felt more like an apocalypse set of formations and detachments, but they weren't even that good for the command benefits that you could get. Like a combined arms detachment just seemed better than the Castellan of the Imperium, which lets you combine all the different forces together. Whereas these ones, I would say that they're better than the ones from Fall of Cadia, because they don't focus on having to max things out, with one exception, which isn't that much. And they seem to have better command benefits as well. But overall, I have the same impression from this book, where I like the 3 new characters that are added. I think they're going to add some good power to the games, but without being overall overpowered. But most of the formations and detachments, with some exceptions, are not going to be that great. And then the artifacts are okay. The psychic powers that they introduced, I was a little disappointed by, but we'll go over that in a second. Tactical objectives are fine. And then, of course, you'll of course want to talk about the Black Host, or the Black Guardians, the Ulthway guys, because you seem to be impressed by what they're capable of doing. But we'll get to that later in this video series. And so we're just going to start going through it. We're going to skip, if you have the book with you, then basically you can skip to page 114. We're going to bypass the Echoes of War. There's, of course, a few Echoes of War in here to help you recreate some of the games. But I'm not sure how much there really is to talk about those, besides if you want to recreate some of the games and go play those Echoes of War, is really what it comes down to. So we're going to start on page 114, talking about the forces of the Aeldari. And so I'm going to give a brief explanation of how these all forces all work together, and then I'm going to have Steve talk more about some of the cool rules that they come with. Essentially, what they've done here is kind of quasi-created a new Eldar faction. Yep. It's called the Aeldari, which is basically the worshippers of the dead. And now they call everything Aeldari instead of Eldar, although they still use the word Eldar in there as well. And essentially, the Inari. Basically, wherever you see a Y, just pronounce it like an I. And then when it comes to Yanid, on their videos, they've been calling it Ined. Yeah. So that's just how we're going to go. It just seems like the best way to do it. But in this case, they essentially are combining the Dark Eldar, and Harlequins together into one force, but not getting rid of them acting individually. So you can still play your Eldar the way you always have, still play your Dark Eldar the way you always have, and still play your Harlequins, if you do. If anybody does, the way you always have. Or you can make an Inari force, and the fun thing is they gain the Inari faction as well as maintaining their Eldar, Dark Eldar, and Harlequin factions. So they gain an additional faction on top of that. And then these 3 new characters, which we'll talk about, basically they can be taken in any Eldar, Dark Eldar, or Harlequin force, which is kind of interesting. We'll talk about why, because 2 of them are HQs and one's a Lord of War. Or they can be brought just in an Inari faction as well. So it's kind of cool. They talk about what the Inari factions ally with. So Battle Brothers wise is Dark Eldar, Eldar Harlequins, obviously. Allies of Convenience is the Imperium, because obviously they're working with the Imperium in the story, and the Tau. Desperate allies is Orcs, and then anything Chaos related, and Tyranid and Genestealer Cult, and Necrons. They are come the Apocalypse. So essentially, we'll talk about the Ulthway guys after that too. The Craftworld Ulthway, they can be included in the Inari, or they can be their own thing and their own detachment, which is later in the book. So it's kind of cool. There's a new faction, the Inari faction, combines all of them together. So you're going to have some interesting new combinations. They were already Battle Brothers, so you could combine them before, but now you can more purposefully combine them in the formations and detachments where they cover that.
Transports now. That's a big deal again.
Yeah, like basically because they're all part of the Inari faction, they can ride in each other's transports. So you can stick those Wraithguard back inside of Wave Serpents and that one. Oh, so they could always do Wave Serpents. What's the one Dark Eldar transport?
Raiders and the Tantalus.
Right, where it just comes in and de-size everywhere. Fun, wow. But they do lose some stuff. So why don't you talk a little bit about some of the actually, we're going to be covering that one a little later. Let's just turn the page and see what happens. Yeah, you know what? Let's start with the 3 characters.
Okay.
Because once we get to the detachments, then we'll talk about how they lose power from pain, battle focus, that kind of stuff, and how their rules work.
So why don't you explain what Ivrain is, and I'll explain
How the rules work?
well more about why you don't want to bring her.
Well, no, you go over the rules for Ivrain,
Okay.
and then we'll go back and forth. You do Ivrain, I'll do the Visarch,
All right,
and then you can do the Avatar.
So Ivrain is this is a veteran of the Kimura fighting pits, gladiatorial pits. So she is a fighter with really high weapon skill and ballistic skill, but your standard elven strength and toughness of 3. She's fast, a lot of attacks, great leadership, witch suit for armor save, just a crappy 6-up armor save, but does have a 4-up invuln, because she also is a psyker, a level 2 psyker, and she must take what is actually the discipline called? Revenant.
Revenant, or she can take Demonology, Sanctic.
Only those 2. Now, she's level 2, but that can actually change. She's Eternal Warrior, and actually there's a lot of Eternal Warrior here in this book. All 3 of them actually are. But were they all 3 in the other book Eternal Warrior? No.
No, Call is not Eternal Warrior. Greyfax was not Eternal Warrior, but Celestine was.
Okay. Well, Call good. He shouldn't be. Level 2, Psyker, Stubborn, Strength from Death special rule, which we'll go over in a second. That is the what's the overall rule for all the Inari, whereas Craftworld Elder had Battle Focus, Power for Pain for the the Dark Eldar. They all have Strength from Death instead. Now, if you bring in the Dark Eldar or Harlequins into an Ed Force or Fortification, what's the word? Detachment. They all lose their Battle Focus or Power from Pain and get Strength from the Dead. Which is actually something that... Well, actually, we better explain it before we go on with the character. Because whenever a unit dies within 7 inches, friend or foe...
Friend or foe. Oh,
Yeah, friend or foe. They will basically absorb their life force and gain a soul burst action. One of your guys can gain the life force and gain a soul burst action. So they can immediately do a move, shoot, run or turbo boost, or even a charge as if it's your charge phase right away. So, I mean, you can obviously tell you want your guys in close and getting double actions, possibly not your guys by killing. So that's an overall thing for everybody. And we'll get deeper.
Because the big thing with that is, essentially, that's a theme. This whole thing, you're going to see a theme, is a 7-inch, sometimes 14-inch with some boosts. But basically, the soul burst thing, that anything that dies, not non-vehicle thing that dies, you choose one of your units that was within 7 inches of it when it died, and they get a free action: move, shoot, run, or charge. And so, but only one, and they can each unit can only do it once per phase. But if you think about it, there's a lot of combos that are going to come up. Some that we haven't even thought of yet. Like you move up within 7 inches of a unit and shoot it to death. Then that same unit that just shot could immediately make another shooting attack. So think of Wraithguard, for example.
Yep.
Of course, they're the obvious example. Or Wraith Knights. They move up, they kill a unit, and then they immediately get to make another shooting attack, which is very powerful. Or something else within 7 inches of it immediately gets to charge somewhere, or gets to move, or do all that kind of stuff. Now, the movement one or the running one is not really exciting because you've lost battle focus just to kind of gain it in a much less useful way. But being able to shoot again, have somebody else shoot, or to charge in, if you actually have some close combat guys, it can be pretty useful.
Yeah, just thinking really good combat units, charging a unit, wiping them out, and then charging again.
Yeah.
Like, there are definitely some uses here.
Although that one might not work as well.
Why not?
Because it happens immediately after they make the kill. And so you interrupt the initiative steps of their combat, and they would charge again, and then you resume their initiative steps. And so they would already have attacked, and their initiative would be over.
It would be a new combat.
It actually says that it interrupts the initiative, and then it resumes the initiative for that combat. So essentially, if you had a combat 2 units fighting, and at initiative 5, usually, your guys killed them, then they could take a soul burst and charge, but then they resume their initiative. So that combat is not finished. You didn't finish that combat. And so if you decided to have them charge, unless they FAQ it to change it, because it is kind of get wonky, but they do very specifically say that if it's during the fight sub phase, then it's essentially it happens at the end of the initiative step, and then the initiative step, and then your initiative resumes, which might actually matter because if there's multiple units in the combat, at initiative 5 they might kill something, and then you could charge in with something that has only initiative 2 or initiative 1. Perhaps I'm not sure what of Dark Eldar would have that, but anyway.
You're going to see like highs and going down to 5s. So like 6s will kill everything and 5s will kill something else, hopefully.
I think that'll happen less often than some of the other interactions that you can get. Because you'd probably have something else charge rather than the one that just fought, so they don't lose their extra attacks.
Well, it's Aeldari. You want to shoot instead of combat anyway for the most part. Or you can get safely into combat and not get shot.
Or heck, the unit that just killed them in close combat could then shoot.
Yeah, no, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. So that's essentially the strength from Death Rule, which they all have. So she has that, but so do the rest of the Inari.
Okay, so just talking about Ivrain now, just what she does. That's the rules for the actual Aeldari, or the Inari. She also has a Grinx Familiar on her little base. It does allow her to generate D3 additional warp points that only she can use. Not bad. And she has the Herald of Inari special. Whenever an Aeldari model within 7 is slain of her, you can roll a die. On a 4+, she immediately regains a lost wound. Now, if it was a Psyker, she also gains 1 mastery level. Now, that's really cool. If she's in a unit of Psykers, and one of your Psykers die, she can, on a 4+, gain another level.
And as we're going to find out, there's their formation that'll make that a 3+ rather than a 4+.
Yeah, because you don't want that 3+. You don't want to get those mastery levels. But she will probably be using Revenant, and it's a discipline that wants you to go up close. Most of everything in this book wants you really... Well, no, hold on. Everything in this book wants you really close to your enemy. A place that Eldar don't actually want to be. So it'll be a completely different play style from every Eldar. All 3 of the current factions, this is going to play drastically different from all of them.
I think the Harlequins will appreciate it, because a lot of the Harlequins' abilities are about close combat. And so I think we might be missing some really interesting synergies, because the problem with the Harlequins is surviving to get to close combat, where they actually are pretty good. And so this is perhaps what we're going to see really thrive in all of this is the Harlequin faction.
That's a very good point. I hadn't considered that. You're absolutely right. Well, you're right. So Harlequins are going to get a big boon out of this book. Even the Dark Eldar or Dark Eldari will get a big boon out of this book. Probably less so Craftworld. But it is a big buff for at least a couple of them. And I hadn't considered the Harlequins. You're right. They actually are going to get the most out of this.
Well, even the Eldar, if you think about it, because you're thinking there's close quarters and there's close combat. Being close quarters doesn't necessarily mean close combat. Like I know, for example, my Necrons, they like close quarters because then all their rapid fire comes into range. And they don't care if you hit them back because then they never die. But so that's different. So in Eldar, typically they have longer range weapons and they like to jump around and stay away from combat. But if you can get those extra shooting, if you can get close and then be able to shoot twice and then keep doing that, you could chain it off if you really think about it. If you had all your guys up close and the one kills something, takes another shooting attack immediately, kills something else, which allows somebody else nearby to take an extra attack on top of the other one that they're going to do anyways, you could end up having 2, 3, 4 extra shooting attacks from your army, which is really good at shooting. So if we have to pay for it by getting close.
Absolutely. However, I need a counter to that, though. I'm not trying to beg on it, but all your Eldar are going to be really close to the enemy. A place they're, again, usually just toughness 3, and the best save is usually just 4 up. They are going to die afterwards. So I'm really close to get additional actions in this turn. However, if they were farther away, in a safer spot, they'll probably get 6 actions playing 6 turns of the game.
And I don't disagree with that, and I'm not really. I guess I'm not trying to argue the power gaming point. It's more like I think about my Gene Stealer cult that I like to play, and the games of the Gene Stealer cult tend to go one of 2 ways, and rarely in the middle. It tends to be that I either slaughter my opponent or they slaughter me, because it all comes down. In my case, it comes down to these dice rolls of the cult ambush and how close I get. But like the games usually start with me close to my enemy, and I'm all toughness 3 on that one as well for the most part. And so either I'm killing them really quickly, or if I fail that, then they kill me. I think that these guys will play a lot similarly in a very different way, because they're not cult ambushing in. They're just moving their bikes up, or they're deep striking in with their webway portals, which lets them just get 9 inches away, which unfortunately is not the 7 inches, but we can talk about that too. But they have the ability to get close and then do that extra shooting attacks, or in the case of some things like the Harlequins and Dark Eldar, some extra close combat, which will let you. It's almost like an alpha striking army. That it's an all or nothing. It gets in there. It gets to do extra damage, and if it fails that, then you're probably dead.
Yeah. No. See. No. I do want to say that this book is taking me out of my comfort zone. That's what it is about. Because if my guys are up front, my opponent has options on how to deal with them. I want to take away his options. However, I will be more deadly up front, so hopefully I can take away his options by killing. So I'm not saying it's going to be like, don't play it, it's not going to be playable. It actually is. It's going to be great. It will be strong. It will be a lot of fun. It's just out of my comfort zone. So just keep that in mind as I talk about everything in here.
Yeah, and if you're wondering why Steve doesn't just play his Eldar the way he normally does, and then just use the power from or the strength from death rule when it happens to happen, because sometimes their enemy's going to get close, or you want to get an objective, so you want to get close. It's mainly because, as we'll talk about soon, in order to be counted as an Inari faction, you have to take the formations and detachments from this book. So you can't just take a combined arms detachment and call them Inari. They're not allowed to, even if your HQ choice is Ivrain. And this is the cool thing: Ivrain and the Visarch, they're both HQ choices, so you can actually bring them just as HQ choices for your Eldar, Dark Eldar, and Harlequins. So Harlequins can now bring a combined arms detachment. I'm not sure if there's something there, but there might be.
Objective secured, but you're probably still better off being in an Ari.
Yeah, exactly, to get all the extra benefits. But either way, the only way to count as an Ari is for you to take the detachments formations here. And so Steve has to make that choice. Do I play my Eldar the way they were before and have battle focus, which is incredibly useful? Yep. Or do I bring them as a Nari and I lose combined arms attachments? I get to bring all my formations because they're all in here, but I can't bring the CAD, which is often a very good choice for the Eldar with their bikes. And so you have to, there are choices to be made, which does force you to kind of choose one or the other, which in a tournament might eliminate some of these things from it. But in friendly play, or in our case, our narrative play, it makes for some really interesting scenarios. I think we'll see a lot of fun with them.
I think I love playing my Dark Eldar. I think it'll be a tough decision, not too tough, but I think almost every time I play Dark Eldar now, it'll be Inari. There's enough difference and little tweaks and fun in here to play Inari instead of Dark Eldar. The only difference being that Dark Eldar have their own detachment of Real Space Raiders, which allows them to have no objective secured, but 6 fast attack. So I have to weigh that against this book and all the bonus it gives here. I think the book is going to win. So Dark Eldar, I'm probably only playing Inari. I'll say that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, just one more thing to mention for Ivrain. She has a close combat weapon, strength 4, AP 3, instant death.
Well, strength plus 1 AP 3, because that's important for strength modifiers.
True. I don't know how often that's going to come up.
Probably not very often, but it's AP 3 instant death on a strength 3 model. Now, we haven't talked about the biggest reason why, and the only reason why I'm not a big fan of her. She's 200 points.
Yeah, a lot of these characters tend to be 200 plus points. The Visarch's only 150, but the other book too was like 200. Yeah. So what's wrong with that?
That's it. She you can make a far more effective character for like half the point cost. Far more effective, or even just even a Farseer, an Ari Farseer on a jet bike is not that much. It's cheaper. It's definitely cheaper. Much more mobile and resilient. Her only downfall is her point cost for me.
Well, as we go through the book, pay attention to the things where she's required. I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the audience. And we'll see if there's some combos that can make her worth that 200 points. So I know she works with the Visarch in certain ways, and so maybe there's some sort of combo that can make it worth it. Or maybe she's just too many points. Well, what would you think she's be worth? Like 100, 150 kind of thing? Okay,
when I play my Dark Eldar, I do never deploy a unit on the field, including their transport, that costs over 150 points. Because they're fragile, they're going to die. Now, she's going to be one model in a unit that is probably up close to the enemy. That unit is so expensive now for Eldari, that it's going to be, if you lose it, you're losing way too many points. I just don't want her to die. I lose 200-point character that's only level 2 Psyker, who's not really doing that much for my army outside of, I think, her formations. To be honest with you, that's it. That's really it. 200 points for level 2 Psyker on a toughness 3. Granted, Eternal Warrior base, but only save you really have is a 4-up invulnerable.
Yeah, no, I don't think she'll be that survivable. Now, I should point out she has a Warlord trait, a set Warlord trait favored of Ened, which is one of the Warlord traits for Inari, which basically makes her unit able to do Soul Burst for 14 inches rather than 7 inches. So that could make us have some interesting combos there.
That literally could offset her entire point cost.
Now, mind you, it's a little more random, but you could just have a regular Farseer roll on the Inari Warlord trait table and possibly get the same one. Because if you bring the one detachment, the Reborn host or whatever, they get to reroll their Warlord trait. But then you're like trying to get it rather than just having it.
I think the important question here is, and I actually don't know the answer. I hadn't considered this before I started this video. Do you think you get to soul burst if you're inside a transport?
No.
Okay. Because I can keep it.
Okay, let me say why. Because there's been FAQs come out that basically cover the fact that if you're inside of a transport, for all intents and purposes, you're not on the battlefield, with some exceptions. Like, for example, fire points for doing psychic witch fires and shooting attacks.
Okay.
But like if you have an ability, for example, a warlord trait that says everybody within 12 inches of the warlord gets to reroll ones to hit, like some of the warlord traits in the big rule book, that wouldn't work when you're inside of a transport. Unless, there's some exceptions, like the Chimera specifically says that you can issue orders while you're inside of the Chimera. Normally you couldn't. So when you put somebody inside of a transport, if they have like an area of effect thing, which is this would count as that because it's like this area of soul burst, of they're absorbing the energy, then that goes away while they're inside the transport. So no, I would say.
So I'm really thinking about the only unit I can see you're putting her in is probably another 200-point unit inside of a 100-point transport. It's a 500-point unit just to keep her alive. 500 points on one unit for Eldar is probably not super efficient.
What's that unit?
It'd probably be what would it be?
Wraithguard?
No, I would never put a Wraithguard. Not enough models. Wraithguard will just die. You don't want to put characters with Wraithguard.
But then they're toughness 6, so they could survive a lot better.
No, they'll die. They're only it's 5 models, 5 wounds, 3 up save.
But you can still get them out of their transport, like deep strike them in without scattering, kill something, and then they can take a soul burst action within 14 inches and do it again. So that could be like it's a one trick pony in a bit, but imagine her deep striking in with the group of them. They kill something and immediately get to fire again. So you can stick them in the middle because you have the one webway portal upgrade, right?
Yep.
That lets you deep strike without scattering.
Yep.
So forget having a transport. Just deep strike in the middle of 2 things that you really want dead. Or, because it's whenever they kill a unit, right? So if you're firing at a squad that has independent characters inside of it, it's like a Death Star, you get those destroyers. Yeah, as long as you kill at least one character, you get to do it again. So you could double tap your D size.
She's better served in a Court of the Archon. More wounds, toughness 5, feel no pain. Better served in a Court of the Archon. And keep in mind, you want the Wraithguard close to shoot twice.
The real question is, are you allowed to charge if you've deep striked? Like if there's under the...
No, I wouldn't, no.
Well, strength, it says, okay, they can make a soul burst action. You cannot pick a unit that's locked in combat, falling back, or has gone to ground. A unit making a soul burst action can do one of the following, even if it has already done so in this turn. So they can move as if it were your movement phase. They can shoot as if it were your shooting phase. The unit can immediately make a charge move as if it were your charge subphase. So they can actually overwatch against you, anyways. Okay, yeah. So it doesn't say that. Some people are going to argue it.
No, well, I don't think there's an argument. Not to I know people will try, but quite simply, you can't charge from turning deep strike.
Right, but this says that as soon as you took but you can immediately make a charge move.
As if okay, yeah, I see. Okay, I wouldn't allow it.
I don't think I would. I think you're right, because that could be if you could. Imagine if they FAQ that you could. Then all of a sudden you can see some combos.
I could actually see them actually FAQ and saying you could. It's a possibility. I'm not saying they should. I'm saying we've seen them FAQ things. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can imagine then you deep strike in, you do your things, and then somebody else charges in that's coming from reserves or something that you normally wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay, so I would actually use her more often then because our weapon skill 8 and 2 weapons, 6 attacks on the charge, strength 4, AP 3, instant death. She's gonna kill stuff. That she will if she could do that. If the Nari could do that, she will definitely make her points back, 100% of the time.
Yeah. So I think even without that, just I think I would be terrified if her with Wraithguard, with the webway portal thing, knowing that when they come in, all they have to do is basically stick them in between 2 units, and both those units are dead. So I would be terrified by that.
But then they're gonna die right afterwards.
But if they've killed 2 key units, that could be way more points than what they paid for.
Yeah. Okay.
Depends what they're playing against.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Like a Death Star is going to be terrified of that. All those they're already terrified of D size, but imagine now they get the D size with the potential for more D size.
So quite frankly, everything I just said, that okay, she can make her points back if she can do all that, but that would work for everybody else, and you can make a cheaper, more effective version of her. The only thing you can't do is you can't copy her gain mastery levels. However, you can start with mastery level 3
for less points.
Yep.
Okay, so that is Evrain, Emissary of Ened. So now we're going to talk about the Visarch, Sword of Ened. This is basically the bodyguard of Evrain. And the Visarch is less points, only 150 points, so, already much better. But weapon skill only 7 instead of 8. Still the strength and toughness and wounds of 3, 7 initiative, 4 attacks, 10 leadership, 3+ save with no invulns in sight.
That's the only thing that really upsets me, because the model is even armed with a Dire Avenger invuln shield.
Where?
You can't see it. It's on the back of his arm right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's there.
And it's not maybe meant we didn't miss it.
No, I looked. He has no invuln, and that is his only real downfall. And that's it. Only downfall, no invuln. If he had invuln, he might be overpowered.
Yeah. So he's Eternal Warrior, Fleet. He's an independent character. He does precision strikes, which is kind of fun, especially because he has a two-handed weapon, which he's holding with one hand on the model. But it is essentially it's strength +2, so strength 5, AP 2, and everybody within 3 inches use their lowest leadership rather than the highest.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, sometimes. And he has a strength from death, stubborn. So just like Evrain has the rule that whenever somebody within 7 inches dies, she gets to regain a wound on a 4+, and then she can become a better psyker. He has a similar rule whenever an Aeldari model is slain within 7 inches on a 4+. And it doesn't say that you have to choose. So if like the Visarch and Evrain are next to each other, they both get to roll. It doesn't say one person with this rule can do it. Regain a lost wound, and if it was a character, he gets +1 attacks to his attacks characteristic to a maximum of 7. But he's at 4 attacks, so he can go up to 7 attacks in total if characters die around him.
I just thought of a pretty mean combo for both these guys. Keep them up front, take a couple of wounds, start lookout stirring, and then heal them back up. Yeah, it's kind of dirty. So your range a little bit better, and so is he.
So he also has Warden of Evrain. So if the Visarch is in the same unit as Evrain, you can choose to pass a lookout stir automatically from Evrain, but it must then go on to the Visarch. And he automatically glorious interventions if Evrain is in a challenge, which is kind of nice if it's necessary. Although he could have accepted the challenge to begin with, unless there's some sort of nice, interesting swapping combo you can do there. So if you have them in the same unit, then basically every time an Eldar dies, then on a 4+, unless you're you bring the formation of all 3 of them, which you might as well try.
Does it say he has to take it, or can somebody else take the lookout star for him?
You can choose.
Okay, so in combat, you can really do some wound allocation, reallocating under units and healing guys. Actually, this could be really, really good. I'm not a combat type player, but there's a way of really keeping your characters alive with this. Yeah.
You can start some wound allocation shenanigans. You can allocate to the nearest one, and then allocate one to him if you really need to, automatically. Yep. But with the other ones, it's a 2+. With him, it's automatic.
Keep them up front, and then have your units taking a 3-up armor save with him until he starts failing 1. Kill a model, hopefully heal back up, allocate again, keep him on him. There are really dirty things. It's going to slow the game down.
Well, and it also just kind of all goes out the window once you hit them with some high strength attacks, because then they're going to be taking a ton of wounds, and you might just wipe out the rest of the models. And sure, they get back up to their 3 wounds, but then they're by themselves again. So we'll see. We'll play them and we'll find out. You're definitely going to see some battle reports with these guys. And then he has the Way of the Visarch rule, which he always has a Warlord trait, even though he's not a Warlord, and he generates it from the Inari Warlord traits table. Cool. And for the purposes of when the Warlord trait talks about something, he counts as the Warlord for it. So when it says your Warlord in his unit, it's not like he's given another Warlord trait to your other Warlord. And so, I think we're going to see some interesting combos, especially with his precision strikes. He's got Rampage as well. And so if you're outnumbered, which hopefully you aren't too often, he gets the extra D3 attacks with strength 5, AP 2, and he could be up to 7 attacks. He could really punish. It's precision strike. So every time he rolls a 6 to hit, he's like, I'm going to take out that special weapon or that character so I can get even more attacks.
Well, 2 things that's important there. 1, add initiative 7, which is ridiculous. And 2 is he does more than just gain wounds back. If he gains a wound back from a character, he actually also gains another attack.
Yeah, I already said that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Up to 7 attacks.
Oh, does he have the 7? Oh,
yeah.
I assume we were talking about Rampage.
No. But yeah, so he gains the extra attacks. But the only thing that you have to worry about is the fact that neither he nor Ivrain have assault grenades.
No. Okay, so this book, just think of them as Dark Eldar. They're all Dark Eldar because they're just no assault grenades. It's frustrating, but hopefully you can... I can't think of anything. No, it's frustrating.
Yeah, because all that initiative just kind of goes out the window. Unless you're playing like a tournament that has like 3 pieces of terrain on the board. But if you're playing at MiniWarGaming, you're going to be initiative 1 all the time because we like to use terrain in our 40K games. So other than that, forgetting that, which is a pretty big deal,
Yep.
I think if Rain and Visark make a good combo, they make a good power combo. It's 350 points to bring the two of them. But if you bring them in the formation where you have all 3, then you get to bring the avatar, the Incarn, or the Yincarn, if you want to. This guy is cool, so I'm going to let Steve talk about him.
All right.
Actually, it's not him. It's not a him. Well, it's a him and a her and an it. It's like, it's a representation. It's an avatar. So it's a representation of a lot of the fallen dead. So we'll just say it.
It is a demon. It is a monstrous creature and it is a lord of war. Beastly stats, weapon skill 9, but skill doesn't really matter, but strength toughness 6, 5 wounds, initiative 10, 6 attacks, 10 leadership, and a 3-up save. And because it's a demon, fear and 5-up invuln. Deep Strike, Eternal Warrior, Fleet, Preferred Enemy, Demons of Slanesh, and Psyker Master level 3, and Strength from Death.
So I should point out, Ballistic Skill does matter because a lot of the psychic powers will be shooting attacks.
It's true, yeah, so it is Ballistic Skill 6.
7.
It's 6. It is 7.
They're numbers, I know, they're hard. The 7 looks similar to the 6. But anyway, it's early. It's not really, actually.
You mocking me?
Yes, just to be clear. Okay, continue.
Okay, so he has the avatar you need special roll. Whenever...
Ined.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Ined. Whenever an Aeldari model is killed within 7 of the Incarn, roll a die. And a 3+, it regains a lost wound.
That's 3+, which becomes 2+ with the formation.
Really good. So he will likely stay alive.
But that's not the cool part.
Well, there's 2 cool parts. But I'll go to the less cool part first. Okay. Ned stirs. And Ned stirs. The Incarn and all friendly non-vehicle units with the Ynnari faction within 12 of him, of the Incarn, sorry, have fearless and feel no pain. Cool. That's really good. But the next one's way better. Inevitable death. The Incarn must be deployed in Deep Strike Reserve. Unless the Incarn has been slain, each time a unit, friend or foe, is completely destroyed, unless it was destroyed because off the battlefield, you may immediately place the Incarn as close as possible to the position of that unit, at least 1 away from all enemy models, even if the Incarn is still in reserve. The Incarn may not charge in a turn in which to use this ability. That is
turn. So if that happens during your opponent's turn, you can still charge on your turn.
That is so good. This model who heals up his own wounds is gonna bounce all over the battlefield, and it's only 275 points. It is so good, and it's gonna be. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this.
And when I read it, it's like it's going to be good. I don't see it as overpowered either for 275 points. I see it as just going to be this really interesting way to do it. He would be overpowered if you were allowed to charge on your turn when you do it, because then you could be like, you know what, I'm going to snipe that rhino, because it doesn't say non-vehicle unit. That's the interesting thing. It's not non-vehicle unit. It's just a unit. So a rhino dying. I almost think it was a typo because all the stuff has been about.
What's about their souls, right?
Yeah, it's been about that kind of stuff. But because I think the strength from death actually says non-vehicle unit. Whenever a unit's completely destroyed, it's just a non-vehicle unit that actually gets to do it. Huh. Anyway, so I stand corrected. So I don't think it's a typo then. But that's just really cool because you can like snipe a rhino from across the table. So you can choose an easy target to snipe, and all of a sudden, he's right where it is. Now, there's going to be some arguments of how he's supposed to be placed because it says as close as possible, but the problem is, you're killing models one at a time, and so they're removed, and then you have to remember where they were. On top of that, you have to stay at least an inch away from an enemy, and so if you kill a single model, that was a unit, and there's nowhere to fit him, but it does say as close as possible, then all of a sudden there's like a range of places where he can be put. And so I think it's going to take a bit of friendly sportsman like playing ship stuff if you want to be able to place it properly. For the most part, it's going to be simple. I killed this unit, let's put it in the middle where it was or close to this objective. But yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. And that's from reserve that he can come in too.
Yeah. Well, okay. Just the multitude of possibilities for objectives, killing your opponent. It's just everything. Just getting away to go somewhere else where you can heal himself. Just this thing is going to be near an auto include for an Incarn army or an Incarn faction.
A lot of fun. And his close combat weapons, Fleshbane, Armorbane, Soulblaze.
Right.
It's an AP2 as well, but he's already AP2 with Monstrous Creature. So Fleshbane, Armorbane. Strength 6 Armorbane, so it's nice. And then Strength 6 won't matter for Fleshbane because it's just 2s no matter what. And you don't get to reroll like Poison. But he's always winning on 2s, and he's Strength 6 Armorbane, which will be able to let him take on almost anything vehicle-wise, especially with his base 6 attacks. So 7 on the charge. Nothing else for the attacks, right? Just fleet. No assault grenades, though.
No, but it's, hey, you can't have everything.
Initiative 10
Probably one.
will most likely be 1. But, the other thing is, all these special rules for these 3, like the Strength from Death is any unit that dies, you get that Soul Burst action. But these 3, make sure you understand the distinction, is it has an Aeldari model within 7 inches of them, or 14 inches if they have that one, if they have other things. But that's only 7 inches for this one. So it's only Aeldari model. So it's all about reaping the souls of not necessarily friendly units, because you could be playing against Eldar, Dark Eldar, or Harlequins. But most likely it's all about reaping the souls of your own guys. And so they have to die in order for you to heal and to gain these extra abilities. So
that's the narrative. It's gathering the Eldari souls to create an Ed.
Exactly. And that's what I really like, the inevitable death rule where he gets to pop up, except for non-vehicles. It doesn't make sense. But the idea is that you cause enough death and then he becomes incarnated. Yeah. Now, that only would really make sense totally if it was Aeldari. I'm glad that they didn't make it just Aeldari because that really limits where he could go. But, yeah. But you're most likely going to want to do it when they shoot at you and kill something, so you might not have as much control. But if you're up in their face 7 inches away, then all of a sudden you've got the avatar in their face that they have to think about for the rest of the game.
I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it in the psychic phase and your opponent's turn mostly. But no, there's even if it was just Aeldari models you could pop around, it'd still be really good. He's your backup, he's your goalie, he gets where he needs to be.
And then we have the Triumvirate of Ined, just like we had the Triumvirate for the Fall of Cadia with the 3 new characters. But this one's actually, the other one, the Fall of Cadia one's good. They all get to have their Warlord trait, essentially, is what it is. But this, and they buff some people around it, but it wasn't as good. This one is you bring the 3 of them in a formation, and then friendly non-vehicle units from an RA formation or detachment that are within 12 inches of 2 of the models have Fearless, which obviously they would already had that if one of those was the avatar. So basically, if they're within 12 inches of the Visarch and what's her face, Ivrain, all of a sudden those 2 are casting this 12-inch-ish Fearless bubble, which will include themselves and the unit that they're part of, because I don't think they were Fearless already, right? No. So basically, makes them Fearless essentially if they stick together. And if you have all 3 models on the battlefield, doesn't matter where, then all friendly units have Fearless. Inari faction friendly units have Fearless. So your entire army can be Fearless, which is a pretty big deal. It's kind of annoying. I'm not a big fan. Like I said, with the Fall of Cadia one, there was one that gives the entire army Zealot. I'm not a big fan of giving everybody Fearless because I like the morale aspect of the game. And so just making everybody ignore it is kind of, I like pinning. I like morale checks. And so just saying, no, nobody has to do that. It's kind of frustrating, but
the Eldar are really going to love this one, actually, because a lot of minimum squads of bikes, you lose one, and you failed at Leadership 8, you've really nerfed their ability, or they ran off the battlefield. This Fearless thing is actually a really big deal for Aeldari.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I'm trying to say, is that I like the fact that you kill one of those. If you're going to bring min squads of bikes, then you have that disadvantage of one guy dies and the rest can, and I've seen that happen lots of times.
Not anymore.
And I like that. I'm like, it's good because it helps to balance them. But then all of a sudden, by bringing these 3, now mind you, you've paid a lot of points for those 3, but they can also do other stuff. Everybody's Fearless, so that can be interesting, especially because if you start with the Avatar in reserve, your opponent starts firing at you, kills one of your squads, and then he shows up, and now everybody's Fearless because now all 3 of them are on the battlefield. So that's kind of fun. And then Ed's chosen. If all 3 models from this formation are on the battlefield, you add 1 to those rules where they can regain wounds. So it becomes 3+3+ for Ivrain and the Visarch, and a 2+ for the Incarn. So that seems like a good formation.
Yeah, you're paying a lot of points, but you're going to get some use out of it.
Yeah, the formation itself doesn't cost any points. Unlike, let's see, just trying to think where we want to switch over. You know what? I think we've covered a lot in this first video. We've covered the 3 characters. We've talked a bit about the Aeldari faction and how that works, and the strength from death special rule, and the formation of the Triumvirate. So we're going to leave that here. We're going to go into part 2 right now, which will be in the link in the video description below. And we're going to cover the rest of the formations and detachments, and also talk about the artifacts and the psychic discipline, and we'll get into the Ulthway forces as well, all in the MiniWarGaming Vault at the link in the video description below. Go ahead and click that. If you're not a Vault member, you can still get a 7-day free trial. Watch those videos, and then if you don't want to keep your Vault membership, go ahead and cancel. We allow you to do that. We want you to try it out, because we know that most people, once they try it out, they don't cancel, because they want to keep watching all the content that's in there. And of course, if you're already a Vault member, thank you so much for supporting us. We love you guys. Happy wargaming.